Doctors of Reddit, what made you say how to FK? Is this person still alive? I was an EMT and got called to a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The state I was in mandates that a medical professional is needed to declare someone as dead, even if it's obvious. When I get to the house, the cops are securing the shotgun he used and looking around for information on family or friends. I reach down to feel his carotid, neck, pulse to begin confirming DOA, death on arrival. As soon as my hand touches his skin, his arm snaps up, grabs my wrist, and he slurs, "I'm still alive." I nearly shit myself, but managed to keep it together. He was alive when we delivered him to the hospital, but HIPAA kept me from knowing what happened long term. Edit, HIPAA, not HIPAA. One of my friends got hit by a minibus. Was in a coma for 6 days, fractured both her wrists and dislocated one arm, fractured her pelvis and damaged her spinal discs. Her chances of survival were lower than 10%. She somehow survived and is perfectly fine 3 years later. Graduated from medical school a few weeks ago and haven't started residency, so all of my experiences come from medical school. This one has more to do with a patient's past medical history instead of anything acute. Had one patient in one of my internal medicine rotations who was admitted for hip surgery, who was one of the nicest, sweetest people I've ever met. Her surgery was pretty routine and there were no complications. In her past medical history, she was diagnosed with stage 4 endometrial cancer that had spread to her brain. Apparently she had undergone chemo, radiation, primary tumor resection, and surgery to remove the brain met. She remained cancer-free since that period. The fact that she had undergone that whole ordeal and appeared to be mostly healthy and was in remission from her cancer really blew my mind. Not a doctor obligatory. My friend's dad went skydiving and his parachute didn't open all the way. Hit a slanted metal roof at full speed. Broke just about everything possible but survived, and made a full recovery. I think the only thing that saved him from dying was the fact that the parachute deployed but didn't open, so it still slowed down his fall, but not enough to save him from injury. When I was at high school in the 90s, some kid took 24 pills of Dramamine, original formula, when you didn't need ID to buy them, because it gave you an LSD type high. Thankfully this guy's friend took him to the school nurse as soon as he told him what he did. The school nurse called the fire station, no 911 in the town at the time, for an ambulance, and their first question was, "Do you have a time of death?" Not a doctor, but a cop. Responded to a call where a dude shot himself in the head. Doctors said he didn't have much of a chance. He survived. It's actually super common for head GSWs to survive. I really don't understand how, but I've had one and my friend that works in the hospital has had a few. Not a doctor, but my former step-uncle used to work on towers, like cell phone towers. His harness broke and he fell, landed straight on his back. Doctors said he was lucky to make it to the hospital alive and wouldn't live. 6 months later he's walking and talking again. He just has short-term memory issues and his speech is slowed down. But he can still function and be a dad. People will probably come here for dramatic stories, but it's the extremely frail, demented elderly that astound me. 30 kilo, haven't recognized anyone or know where they are for 5 years, in bed, no communication, contractures, curled up, incontinent of everything. What they do really well is eat. The heroic staff might spend upwards of an hour patiently spooning in mushed up food, and they open their mouths like little birds and down it goes. With a good pair of lungs and heart, they can live for a very long time. Whether this is a good thing or not is up to society to decide. It doesn't stop family members shouting at me and threatening to sue when they, inevitably, get pneumonia, and I suggest that not admitting them to hospital for 4 antibiotics might be gentler or more humane, because it's not going to work, and even if they do survive, They will be in worse shape when they are discharged. And then it'll happen again. Not a doctor, but I have a classmate who had stage 4 cancer in his lungs. The doctor said to his parents not to buy milk for him, because he will be dead before it expires. He is still alive and well 10 years later, and he's cancer-free. He lived his childhood in the hospital, but other than that, he is okay and is very healthy. So glad that we didn't lose a person like him. Not a doctor but a medical assistant. I was doing some shadowing in an ER and a young woman was brought in that looked pale and completely devoid of any life. Her left leg was mangled and her right arm and hand were both broken. She also had multiple head wounds. Apparently she had run off the road and flipped her car into a large creek where she was trapped for almost an hour. When the ambulance got to her, her head was just barely above water and she was completely knocked out. She had already been to another hospital where they took out her appendix because it had burst due to the trauma from wreck. I believe she also had kidney trauma since her urine was bright red. Everyone was baffled at how she was alive. Not a doctor, and work in the veterinary world of medicine rather than the human world of medicine. Anyway, thought this was kinda interesting. Dog gets hit by a car and by some miracle is uninjured, so the owners and dog go on with their lives for the next month or so, until the dog is due for his yearly exam and vaccines. Doctor enters the room, takes a look at the dog and is like, what happened? This dog has a big ol' fucking dent in half of the top of his skull. It's indented enough that the facial bones on that side of the face are somewhat misplaced and pushed out. But by some crazy stroke of luck the dog healed up just fine, and has no apparent lasting effects besides that dent and a bit of an issue with his ear, as the eardrum ruptured from the impact. One of the craziest things I've ever seen. No hate on the owners, not sure how they didn't notice a dent in their dog's head for a month, but they don't seem to be bad people, or bad owners, just maybe not the most observant people.